this couple of years. Thank you so much for sticking with the channel. I am trying to do some better long form videos. My number one problem has been getting good audio. So we're up here at my studio here in Los Angeles. And again, it's echoey, the audio is not great. So I'm working on getting a better microphone that I can Bluetooth. But just for now, we're on my cell phone, just using my not so great cell phone camera. So today I'm just you get a nice thick build up and help. So I don't mind trying a lot of different things on. So I have these Biker Scout armor pieces that are on my bicep. So if I flex, I don't break these connections. The bicep on the Scout piece has a pretty thin, just the way it comes is a pretty thin connection here. And that tends to be where it fails, is this loop connection right here. But with just a little work, either in the slicer or just with scratch building, you can strengthen these connections like up to a level you'd like. But if the bicep is just too tight for the person wearing it, when you use your arm, if you do flex it, you'll crack it. You'll just crack out of this because it's just relying a lot. I suppose if this was flexible, that would also help, but then everything tends to want to sag. So it just starts to complicate stuff. So there's more than one way to sort of get around the fragility here. The forearm piece is a different story. The way it comes due to the styling here and just in general, it is a thicker wall and that has this nice little bit of styling that has a functional aspect to strengthen this quite a bit. I really haven't had any forearms break. Just so it looks okay though, these are also printed at 120. So they match the scale of the biceps, and also my forearms have muscles on them. So it's the same problem where it cuts the blood circulation off. If these are too tight, they're extremely uncomfortable. So my forearm and my bicep are, I keep dropping. Devices, like all my stuff is loading really slow. And it's just strange. There's like some little where it's called Point Fermin. And that's where we are now, in Point Fermin. And so there's no cell phone tower in the ocean. So we're to locate you. So if they would put a cell phone and then add in really right with the Mandalorian, is some of the weathering and just like the mixed parts that they all seem to wear by default. So yeah, something you'll notice in all the Star Wars helmets too, and we'll have to do a long form video on this because it's so interesting. Here's a good example right here. And remember that this helmet design comes from 1979, so that's a while ago. So you see the shape right here? It's a Scout helmet. Notice the shape of the snout. That's the gray part in the front. It's not even just almost the same, it's almost exactly the same. And I don't have a Rex here at the moment, but Rex has this feature as well. Now, I realize that other franchises have even copied this feature, this arched doorway silhouette. I think Warhammer helmets also try to pop up there, this similar type piece. And they're probably just subconsciously copying, Star Wars, and that's fine. The fact is that it's all the original Lucasfilm helmets, all the way up through the clones, all have this shape. this is not an insignificant thing. The reason all the helmets have this shape is because George Lucas told his makers to put it there. And he probably didn't even explain to them why. He just said, put this shape somewhere. Because that's why all the helmets have this shape. A lot of different people worked on the helmets of the different eras. And this is including the Clone Wars animations. So that's George Lucas still had control. So he's known for nudging his designers in certain directions and requesting certain things from his designers. This is clearly one of them, and it's secret. I've never heard George Lucas talk about this. This shape of an arched doorway that appears on nearly every helmet over a 30-year span that Lucasfilms was in charge of this stuff. What is it? Can you guess? It's the doorway from the homestead. It's where Luke lived with his aunt and uncle, right? Look at the doorway on the homestead. And there's quite a lot of scenes that have that doorway in it. And that's also a Lucasfilm design. That's George Lucas designing, or, directing his build. His aunt and uncle are scenes where Luke is being traumatized. There's scenes where Luke, I don't know if I'm the only person that's noticed this, but if it makes sense to you, let me know. I don't really see any comments yet, but we'll just see how this live stream goes. And hopefully later it can also be useful to people. So we want to do a video that's more about that shape, the arched doorway from Luke's homestead. All right, also we have some knees here. And what I'd like to do, we've got some parts. And first of all, when you're aging stuff, you need some black. So I just got some black acrylic. Just make sure it's water-based paint. It can be anything. This is from Home Depot. It could just be any black house paint, hopefully flat black. But this isn't really the final coat, so you could do other stuff over it. But you need some water-based. And then I also have these fun colors by Vallejo. I've got several of these that are very earthy. They're like World War II colors. This one's great. Green, brown, right? You want your car to be green, brown, right? But these colors look great. They're like World War II battleship colors and World War II armor colors. They're cool. And then I've got this brass paint that has been going well, and I think I'm gonna get more of the Vallejo metallic paints because they're actually quite nice. So I would suggest these. Oh, sorry, Vallejo. Yeah, not Valero. Vallejo. So yeah, these are easy to get on Amazon. They're like $5 or $7 for a little bottle, but it's basically a lot like gouache paint is how I would describe it. It's sandable. You can polish it. You can build it up a lot, but you have to realize it's water-based. So ultimately, like this helmet has a couple layers of the gouache on it, but I've since then kind of sanded it and really smoothed it out and kind of buffed it out and then clear coated it. So now I can add more layers of aging to this and it won't kind of wash away that earlier layer. So it's okay if that aging layer is a little fragile and just kind of the way you want it, because then you can clear coat it and now it's just like I can do stuff over this and not wipe the previous layer away, which would be the problem with any water-based paint. I mean, acrylics even, they'll just kind of bubble off. Like acrylics they don't really dry hard enough. So I like the gouache because the way it dries is like more like a powder surface. It's not just gonna like peel off, but it can react. You just have to let it dry really well. Just like any water-based paint, you can't go spraying a clear coat over it until it's really dry for a couple days. If you live in a really hot place, still 24 hours, you should let any water-based, even if it's just aging. So speaking of that, let's get to it. Here's a cool kind of Boba Fett body piece that wanting to just get a little character onto. These look kind of nice together. It's the Boba Fett chest, but mixing the metallic finishes. But I think the silver one, they both need to have some aging added to them that matches. And I'm going to do some of these browns and the black on top of the chrome and metallics. And I think it'll look okay. It looks okay on the helmet over here, but you kind of want to do a couple times. So you're not, the thing with doing like weathering is it doesn't have to just all work out like the first time. And I've got a bucket of water here. I've got cotton rags and also some paper towels, but mainly you want to use cotton because that won't leave that paper residue. But I've just got the paper towels just kind of as an emergency measure. All right. And I'm just cutting up an old shirt here actually, because I do want to use cotton rags to apply the aging. Let's see here. Let me make a little room for myself. I kind of just want to start with some of these scout pieces and just see how they come out with a little black acrylic added. So I've got a bucket of water right here, and the bucket of water is good because that allows you to kind of have an emergency, like if you put way too much paint on something and you're sort of panicking that like you've overdone it, if you have a bucket of water and some other clean rags nearby, you can really back out of your process safely and basically save your piece. That's another reason I do the acrylic coating or the clear coats between layers, because I don't connecting. Okay, sorry my connection keeps going up and down. It's just so lame. I really wish I could do something about it. I've had the internet company come out here and I don't want to do it. It's literally that bad. Because there's only 4 tenants in this structure that I'm in. If you guys want to ask any questions in the text, I can see it. But that's cool. Nobody wants to ask any questions. What I'm doing today is I'm aging a couple of these armor pieces with some black and also some fun brown colors. But I do like to use just some acrylic black, some water-based. Everything we're doing is water-based. So you can pre-wet your part, or you can just kind of go with it dry. Because here we're going with water-based stuff. So, yeah, let's just try this one dry and we'll see how that goes. And we can always add water to it. All right, so I'm going to go with a slightly larger brush and just generously apply the black to the deepest parts of the piece and to places where I definitely want it, like along the edge, and ultimately really everywhere. And this is why getting it wet ahead of time can really help to just kind of spread it out and make it more smearable. I'm just going to go ahead and do this whole thing. Kind of dry brush across the tech there because it's all going to get dirty. See what I mean? And while you're at it, you might as well paint parts of the inside too, just to help look better when you're wearing it. when you paint that Stormtrooper armor nice and dark on the inside up against your dark undersuit, it looks better, and it'll be a little smoother, and it just makes the part look better. I mean, if you have raw print on the inside of your armor, it just doesn't look good when it's sitting there, and I feel like the whole thing is about just kind of getting enough, anything, if you look at it, you're going to find little problems with it that put you back in the real world, probably. But if you can just get kind of enough right, then you can, what is it called? Suspend people's disbelief or something like that. The way the camera sees things is also really different. Even like giant film cameras, there's so much detail they don't pick up. And the lighting can obscure stuff. So even if you look at props that are on-screen props, it's neat to look at them up close, because sometimes you can just even see where there's like little carving and little sculpts that like someone did, but it's for like something you'd notice from further back. So here I just kind of started aging this. Yeah, it's okay. I would probably actually pre-wet, honestly, with how this is going. So I'm just going to get my rag really moist. And this is an example of how to back out of your aging process. Be nice if you could just do this to yourself, right? But let's see here. What I do when I'm ever dabbing a rag to hopefully pick up some cool texture, something that could maybe want to stay there because it looks cool. Always rotate it, because if you just keep the rag in the same orientation and just kind of go over and over and over, it looks like Minecraft. It just looks like a bunch of stamps. But if you rotate it as you go and also relocate and do rotations as you stamp, it's going to just be random, which looks better. So, all right. I do like how this is getting patchy here. This is looking kind of cool. It's fortunately on this part, I got the print lines pretty much gone with all the sanding and finishing. So I'm not getting a like enhanced appearance of print lines really anywhere, except of course on the inside, you can hear them. But the outside, hey, I keep all my print lines on the inside, except for the ones on my face, of course. So, hey, I guess this is also a face reveal. So I've had a couple of comments on the channel where folks have requested a face reveal, but all I've really tried to do so far is just do camera tests, really short tests, just to see how the character's gestures could work and how I would advise somebody. Like if I had to work with an actor who was going to wear this armor, I really wouldn't mind testing it first and doing some with anybody around, including myself, so that I could advise that person better. Like if it just feels like I'm going to see their head, and if they have a big head like mine, I'm going to know that that's not going to fit, or you're going to need a really tight head mask, or wear two, to keep your nose down. It's like yoga pants, but for your face. It's a balaclava, but it's like tighter and it keeps your nose down. I'll tell you what, the Mandalorian helmets don't have a lot of room in there. You can actually see how they kind of even pushed out the design a little to make it a little more comfortable for the actor. But right here, another thing I'm working on here is this helmet, and it's pretty much similar to some of the Mando helmets, but this is the original 1979. And this is not comfortable to wear. It's very flat down the front. You can see where they raked it out a little bit, but by the time it's raked out enough, the problem is the nose position. I think most men are your nose is either touching the lens or it's very, very close. And if part of your face is really, really close to the lens, then if there's an impact on that helmet, it's going to instantly be hitting face. And what you need is some space there. So if somebody does whack the helmet, it has like a sufficient amount of room to move. that's what the Scout helmet is like. That's what's so cool about the Scout helmet. The Scout helmet, it really represents, it looks like a motorcycle helmet for a reason. The Scout helmet represents a functional stun helmet that's in the Star Wars universe. That's how I would describe the Scout helmet, like every time. It's a third generation attempt by George Lucas pushing on new groups of designers every time to come up with a really good stunt helmet. That's where this design is an evolution from your Imperial Stormtrooper. Yeah, the Boba Fett helmet is like much better visibility and movement, but it's still not there. So Boba Fett's like the second generation attempt to create a Stormtrooper that could do stunts better on screen. So I just find that little bit of the history amazing, where it kind of has to become real because someone has to wear it and like do a couple things and see their marks and you know. Anyway, Stormtrooper, but not to say that having Stormtrooper bloopers is a bad thing. There should be more, honestly. There should be more. So anywho, here's this. This part's looking okay. Let me, oh no, did I drop the brush? Oh yeah, it sure did. All right, no big deal. So I'm gonna go ahead back in with some black. Back into this corner, because I think this corner should be sort of more prominent. Just, you know, bring out the design a little. The design is so great. I'm gonna bring it out. And again, when I'm dabbing the cloth, I'm rotating it so that I'm not creating a repetitive stamp over and over. And then Stormtrooper armor is really white, of course, underneath. So it's nice to kind of take some of the highlighted areas and wipe the dirt off so that those white edges really pop against the aging. So let's see if I can get there. Okay. Yeah, and this is just using like a really cheap, like black house paint that is just a matte, dries to a matte finish. It's just water-based, and really I'm just trying to transport some dirt onto what is already a really smooth, like painted, sanded surface. So let's see. Yeah, I'm just getting a little bit of features here. So I'm going to come in with a dry rag. And that's where I want to bring more of the white back out and rotate the rag a lot. And then I'm going to really try to bring this corner back out. This corner. That corner. Okay. All right. So it's kind of shiny now. That kind of makes it look crappy, but I think this will look nice. Once it dries, more interesting. Here's for comparison, here's a clean one. I know the clean ones are cool. So let me know in the comments if I should leave this one clean. But here's just a little bit of aging. Oh, come on. That looks better. Oh, yeah. Look at that. That looks so much better already. See, in my mind, see how I cleaned up that edge right there? That really makes it pop on the camera. See that? So that was just going back with a clean rag and just cleaning off that edge. It's not as important close up, but you'll see when you get away. So when you do that on helmets, it really helps the whole thing pop a lot. I mean, ultimately, everything is about just what it is going to look like for that moment where it's making. Okay, so yeah, we should age this other one too. I think so. Oh, show, because I got a really nicely aged Scout helmet that would go really nicely with these aged biceps. And now this is going to make me have to age the entire body as well. So this will be fun. And maybe we can do it together here live like this, where I'll just do the whole body kit and stuff. So I've got a bucket of water right next to me. And I do suggest that, I do suggest that when you're doing the aging with a water-based product. And in this case, I'm just using some cheap house paint. So I'm using a lot of black, so I don't want to use like an expensive Vallejo black. But how about on this one, we'll do the same with mostly black, but then we'll also try adding some of the other tones and just we'll compare that on camera. So on this one, I got it wet first, and I'm just going to do the same thing where I kind of coat it entirely and generously with black. And this is why you wouldn't want to use an expensive paint for this process, because just to do 2 of these biceps, I would probably, you'd squirt out like quite a lot of model paint to do that. And most of it's all going to get wiped off, you know, pretty much, but a lot of it stays on. It just gets subtle. Show you what I mean, because the rag doesn't really pick up that much paint, but it, you know, picks up some. And you know, why do that with an expensive paint? The whole point here is just to get some black pigment transported onto the piece. So using a wet rag. Okay, so this thing is just like totally painted black. Gross, right? I ruined it. And we're gonna dab with a wet rag all over it. And when you're dabbing, make sure to rotate the rag. I don't even just mean rotate it like in your hand like a ball, but also just make sure that you're coming down at a different twist every time as far as your wrist goes. Because otherwise, if you do repetitive, like just the same, but it'll look, this will be kicked. This will just get kicked. That's why I'm saying that. Something I learned doing props is don't do that, you know. And that was more for like making fake stonework, you know, sometimes on a larger build for a stage set. And you're going to do like you're going to use something like a sponge or just a rag, you know, to create a pattern. You really want to make sure that you're always randomly moving and rotating it. And sometimes kind of scooting around a little. Kind of depends on what you're doing, right? But in this case, I'm trying to simulate how filth, or in this case, I feel like it's how biker scouts are around the bikes a lot. You know, the scout troopers are they're around the speeder bikes a lot. And I think there's a lot of exhaust that comes off those things, to be honest. And so I feel like the scout troopers would get kind of filthy from all of the mechanic duty that they would have just on installations. Okay, but also on their bikes and just riding their bikes. I feel like they would get kind of like filthy, you know, just from the soot of all that bike exhaust. I know that in the movies they don't show that, but I'm just kind of thinking like it might be kind of, you know, gnarly. Those things are just sitting there idling. Do they ever do that? Do the bikes ever just, no, they kind of sit there. Are they floating? Help me out here, because I had the toys as a kid. I've got some now too that I'm really, that I love to play with. But in the movie, do they land on the feet or are they just floating there? Whew, man, I'm going to have to rewatch that stuff. Okay, so here you saw in the beginning it was like totally black, and then now it's, you know, been dabbed, kind of that mottled dirty look where most of the filth is down in the cracks, as that gets left there by the sort of overall shape of this rag. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean off this front panel of this thing just to make it pop a little more. There we go. Okay, and then just like on the last one, I went back into this crevasse and just put another line of quite a lot of black paint again. So again, this is why you're not going to want to use model paint for your black. You're going to want to figure out something a little more economical, because you do put a lot on. But see this rag right here? This is the only dirty rag I have right now, and it's really just mostly wet. Yeah, so I don't know where the paint goes. It doesn't really go on the rag as much as you might think, but I just think the way it gets dispersed on this, there's not really like a ton of, probably if this was more expensive paint, it would stay dark for longer because it would have more pigment in it. So I don't know. I'm just kind of working with whatever the house paint was at Home Depot that was like halfway decent. So I'm also going to rub the inside of the print with that black rag, and that's just going to help the inside pick up a little, darkness. And that looks better when it's like that. If you ever peek inside the armor, you really want it to be black, especially the inside of the helmets. Like, it's okay if the inside of the helmet shows up a little bit on the camera, but you can't have any skin showing, obviously. That's a big no-no. But the inside of the helmet you can kind of see occasionally, and they just paint it black. So FYI, all the helmets should be painted flat black on the inside. And for that, I do like to use a Vallejo paint or another nice kind of organic, non-toxic water-based paint, because it's inside the helmet. And if you just use spray paint, for example, it's gonna not smell great inside that helmet, especially if it gets hot. So for the inside of the helmet, probably this black house paint would be okay, because I think with house paints, they're, they don't want it to smell up the whole house, probably too. So, all right, so that was the second pass at this piece, and I'm going to use the clean rag to just polish off those edges that like I did before. And maybe also just kind of clean up this outer panel a little, just because this outer panel would rub up against stuff more, and like part of that would be like that burnishing that happens. So, except not quite down there, so we'll leave that dirty. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. Yeah, I have to think that looks better. Let's see which one of these two came out better. See if these match each other okay. It seems like one guy. Look at it this way, like how they would look. Yeah, it's got some dirt coming on from the head-on view. Got some dirt in the cracks. So let's get it. Not cover that with my finger. Yeah, I like that. It's still obviously white armor. I'm gonna go back into this one with a wet rag and just kind of polish up this outer surface a little, because I like the look where it's like the ultimate homeless guy jacket, where it's like so old and dirty but it's incredibly shiny, or like the ultimate old rusty car, but like where people touch it, it's like incredibly shiny there. I think that is very hard to duplicate, and it's a really good look, because it doesn't just show history, it shows like multi-generational usage, to the point that each piece of armor becomes really unique, is like what I would be going for. All right, so okay, so I kind of cleaned off that. I'm really mainly concerned with how these look from the side. Okay. I'm liking the previous one more. I think this one still needs a little bit of work. Let's just clean it up a little bit. I feel like this one is has too obvious of a gradient happening. So I'm gonna go ahead and fuzz out that gradient where it's kind of goes from dark to light and too obvious of a way. And yeah, it's nice to do this on a print that's been like sanded a lot and painted a lot, because you kind of get the payback for having a smooth finish. Because otherwise, if you don't have a smooth finish and you try to do the aging on it, it's kind of looks so bad. So I know there's a lot of people who do 3D printing where they totally don't. They just print it, it comes off the bed, and they're done. And they use colored PLA. Oh, did we get a question here? What did we get? What's up, dude? What's up? The Godzilla's. Oh, darn! I wish I could read this a little better. Hold on. Looks like I got some really cool comments here. Let's see. What do we got? Yeah, what's up, Kids Coulter? What's up? Godzilla, what's up? The wisest of the winged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Love it. Love that. All right. Welcome, Godzilla. If you guys want to throw up some questions, I'll try to answer them to my best ability. Today I'm putting the kind of aging finish. I'm weathering these armor pieces. So I think, let's see here. I feel like this is just a little too, again, places where it would rub against the shoulder, because this bicep, goes like right here. And then there would be a shoulder piece that kind of comes over it a little, and that would rub, so you can, and theoretically that rubbing would sort of polish that part of the armor. So just kind of, again, using that super dirty and then somehow in some areas polished by usage look. All right. So let's see how these look. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, these are instantly more interesting for the character. And this will match my dirty helmet. Because to me, one of the more interesting storylines is just the surviving scouts that would have been all blasted up and lost in the forest. And some of them survived. You just know it. Okay, let's see here. Oh, bro, thank you so much, dude. Pea Shooter, this is all looking cool. Bro, thank you, Pea Shooter. Thank you. We like those kind of sweet peas, so keep shooting those nice peas, Mr. Pea Shooter, Miss Pea Shooter. Thank you. All right, so here we are with some nice clean forearm pieces. And again, it's really hard to make out this cool design here because there's only whiteness on the surface. It's not dirty. And, I just aged these biceps, and it really helps bring out that design feature. I'm starting to think these would look really cool if this area down here was kind of dark and dirty, but this outer part was really polished just from all like the kind of rubbing and that would be happening here, and then get some dirt in the cracks. So let's go. I am going to pre-wet the piece, as I have been doing. Since we're doing water base, I mean, all your patina work and aging stuff, weathering, should be water-based. Because if you have to thin it out a lot, and you're creating a lot of rags that are dirty. If you do that with oil-based paint, you can't just use water as your thinner. It's just going to be nasty. So I like, the underpaints, like different layers the lower layers are definitely enamels that are oil-based, because those are spray on like primers, and then the silver, like this piece here, it's shiny silver. So that's just like a chrome paint, but over white, several layers of sanded white primer. To try to just eliminate the lines, but then just painting like a little bit of the brass over the silver. I got this really poppy, like almost looks like gold leafing, and it wouldn't look quite like this over white. It wouldn't pop like this. So sometimes you get to this point where it's like it's just not done. You just have to keep layering it and try to layer it in a way that makes use of the previous layer. So doing metallics over previous metallics is always going to look good. It's going to just keep popping more and more. So for this metallic piece here, I just feel like it needs a little more history. And if you have a recommendation for what that could be, I was thinking about doing like some of that like gold cracking. We should try that. Let's try to do some of the gold, like how they do that repair on T-bowls, the old Japanese T-bowls when they break. Kind of makes you wonder why they break too, because they took such good care of those things. Maybe they were having an argument, because it would be samurai often having the tea together. Maybe sometimes they threw the tea bowls and broke them. I just can't. I mean, they were so careful with those things, right? But for one reason or another, we have that wonderful image of the broken tea bowl getting fixed with gold. And that has just, I love how that's been brought into the lore of Star Wars. Like, that's cool. Sure. I mean, there's a whole Japanese version. There's a whole bunch of Japanese language Star Wars stuff, and Japan has their own whole bunch of Star Wars fans. So yeah, having some Japanese cultural influence on Star Wars armor, like, sure, of course. Like, I think, yeah, I mean, Boba Fett looks like a medieval knight. He looks like he's straight out of the Dark Ages, especially if you make him all shiny. So why not have samurai influenced Star Wars? I mean, maybe some of it. I mean, obviously, you could go look at all the videos about how George Lucas was influenced by, of course, spaghetti, black and white spaghetti samurai movies, that he grew up with, and the Seven Samurai and the Hidden Fortress. You got to watch the Hidden Fortress. Is one of George Lucas's influences for, I think, The Empire Strikes Back or something. One of those, I believe, Empire Strikes Back. One of those. But it's a very slow burn, dude. Hidden Fortress is such a good. Let's see here. Where'd that wet rag go? Sometimes things just disappear, don't they? My wet rag seems to have totally just disappeared. Utterly, totally. So here we go. I have totally blacked out this piece of armor. Sorry about the connection problems. It's really annoying. Wish I could get better internet here. So what's so great about the water-based paint is once you just completely cover it with the stuff, it's almost like you're just washing off mud, and it just stays in the cracks. And you'll see it really makes the design pop more, and for me, like, I do make my own work that's my own unique design, and I have my own idea, for that. But like when I'm doing this Star Wars armor from like the 80s or the 70s, I am basically just praying to the gods of design. And I'm learning stuff by making it by hand, just as they did. Making a clone helmet is also interesting because I'm pretty sure those were designed in the computer, and they're also interesting to build though as well. But they're, I think, much harder. I think Captain Rex is one of the harder helmets to make because it wasn't originally made by hand. And like the Boba Fett helmet is interesting to make, even the Scout helmet, because those were originally kit bashed by hand. So when you're doing it, even though you're 3D printing the parts, there's room in any areas where you need to put your finger to clean something up, or put your hand or reach a brush to, or everything is like, makes sense. Like there's no features that are way smaller than you could clean up or create with your hand, with your fingers. And that just, you can feel it when you're making it, especially once you start doing clone helmets, because those were just designed on the computer. So the designers of the clone helmets it's not even that they weren't thinking about ultimately making real ones. It's just that, I guess if you just kit bash something out of hand from ground, from just zero, everything about it is going to be hand makeable, right? But I think, in the case of Star Wars, they were going for efficiency, even on the making side of things. They wanted shapes that could come off the mold easily. They need to mass produce the helmets, basically, right? for the movie. So they were almost like figuring it out ahead of time for what would ultimately become mass-produced objects that had to come out of molds. And I think, just without even really maybe consciously trying, what they ended up doing by making mold-efficient Stormtrooper costumes was they weren't that hard to interpret into a toy that was also from a mold. So the toys resemble the characters from the movie because both objects are optimized for mold production. Again, it's like a hidden aspect of the designs. And stuff like that is why I like working on these by hand, because I'm just getting an education, But of course, I know that the most important thing is to come up with our own ideas, Of course. All right, so let's see, how is this coming? After all this scrubbing and polishing, let's see here. Okay, so it's a little more prominent. We can compare it to, pretty subtle. I'm definitely going to put some more black on, but you can see that this starts to pop those design features, and this isn't yet, I really do like the clean armor. Like, don't get me wrong, it's hard to do this, but I'm motivated. I mean, it's not hard, like it's a lot of work. It's actually pretty easy compared to my job, which is metalworking. That's actually why I love doing this painting process, because it's relatively easy, as far as work goes. I can just sit here and hang out with you guys and do it. I'm not like grinding and then, can't talk while I'm grinding. All right, so we're gonna come in here and try to deposit more. This one's a little harder to hold. And this is the forearm for the Scout from Return of the Jedi. And the reason we're going with a very dirty finish on it is to talk about the Scouts who survived the Battle of Endor, the scattered groups of Scouts that would have undoubtedly survived ultimately, maybe somewhere on Endor. They could probably survive in the colder parts of Endor. I like to think that there's some caves somewhere, that there's groups of Scouts that are living, that are scavenging, the remains of the Empire there. And if there was, they'd be very dirty and kind of jungle warm. You'd have a lot of water damage and water staining. Yeah, let's get in here. There we go. So the parts of the armor that would get burnished because it would be in contact a lot, like it would rub up against stuff, I like to try to get those polished out. So that's going to be this outer, just this whole shape that kind of juts out more. I'm going to just try to clean that off. And yeah, you could kind of go with the sidedness here, because the part of this that's up against the guy's body more is definitely going to be polished more. But I'm just going to kind of go with a symmetrical weathering here, just so it kind of looks the same. Either way I put these on, I don't have to worry about it. I guess I could just label them, but anyway. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, I'm liking this. Yep, so we have this lot of dirt in the crevice, and then a very clean raised area that will appear burnished. So once we go back over this, when it dries, we go back over it with clear coating. It'll look really nice. Here, I'll get these out of our way. So I hope you guys are having a great Sunday out there. What's going on out in the world today? Here's another forearm, which is nice and clean. And yeah, I could just clear coat this right now and it would just be like a perfect, clean Scout Trooper forearm that I could just, I don't know, sell or put into a set of normal, clean Star Wars armor. But my personal armor kit that I like to wear is in the process of getting aged and weathered. And I've already finished the helmet. So now I'm going through all the armor parts and aging them to match the helmet. So this is a forearm from the Scout and 3D printed, just using PLA, nothing too crazy. I'm not really using these like with impacts and stuff. I'm not like expecting this to not break if I fall. Honestly, if it kind of breaks at some point, it's kind of helping absorb some force in a way too. It would be really cool. I do print thicker though. These are like 5 wall. So across the whole piece, there's like 10 walls. And this part's thick, so it still has like a hollow interior. But you could print this pretty close to solid, and it would be really nice. But I don't do anything with just 3 walls. I'm always like 5 or 6 walls. What's really cool is that on the helmets, that means that a lot of time it's just solid because it's like 12 walls thick. There's not going to be a hollow interior on most of it. And that does make the helmets a little heavier, but it also makes them like tougher, and the weight is not a bad thing ultimately because it's just a little more weight. It's not like a game changer for the person wearing the helmet. It's not really going to wear them out or make their neck sore, but the physics on the heavier helmet are going to be way better on camera. If the helmet is too light, yeah, that can be more comfortable for the actor, sure. And in a way, you could say you're saving material and yada, 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 but you're going to get a lot of bobble on the camera. And bobble looks really bad. And that happens. You can see it in Darth Vader's helmet, from the old movies. His helmet bobbles in some of the scenes because it's light. It's that plastic injected stuff. And you have to have that really stuck on really good or it's very hard. So if you just make the helmet a little heavier, like it'll really sit, it'll have more mass, and you're not going to get it nearly as much bobbling. And then just the way the actor moves is going to kind of represent the significance of that helmet more. Come on, we're trying to say these helmets are laser proof. I realized that the Duraplast that stormtroopers are made of isn't laser proof, right? Like I get it. It does other things, but it doesn't stop lasers. But the Mandalorian, the Beskar does, right? And there's certain things that do. So that should appear heavy, I think. And so the way the actor's moving could be informed by a little bit of physical weight being there. So I don't mind helmets to be a little heavy, just because they do look better on stage or on camera or anything like that. I mean, even if you're doing medieval prop armor, printing it solid is, why not? Just make it heavy. It'll look better. The way the actor moves and how it moves on their body will appear to be more like metal, which is what we're going for. And so, yeah, with props, all you're trying to do is create a first impression. And a lot of times that first impression is being created from kind of far away. And then later, people will see things from closer up maybe. And, they'll be informed as well by whatever they see closer up. But nothing can beat that first impression that people see that from far away when they see the entire character for the first time. And so in that moment, if the armor comes across as heavy and solid and not like the guy can't move well, but like when he moves, you can tell there's a little weight in the pieces. Just have the actor slow down a little, raise the gun slower, make it seem like the gun's really heavy, even though it's just plastic. Make it seem like the armor is really heavy, just even though it's just plastic, So sometimes just going ahead and making it a little on the heavy side is not a bad idea. I want it to have a quality feel as well as a quality overall quality appearance. I want the pieces to feel substantial. I want, even though the actors know it's a prop, I want them to feel like, oh, this is cool. It really helps a lot. Helps them do their job a lot. Okay, so here we go. Another perfectly clean piece of armor, totally demolished. And we're going to come back over it with this wet cloth, I think. Let's see. Let's see how that wants to look. I feel like last time when I used the wet cloth, it kind of over cleaned it. And as I've mentioned many times, make sure that you are rotating that rag when you're dabbing that pattern on to your surface and going for a random surface. In this case, I can also rotate the piece as well. But always make sure the rag is rotating so that you don't get a repetitive stamping effect, because that will get not allowed. If that is detected, they will say, no, no, nope. That's usually, that comes up with doing like faux walls for prop walls for a set. You gotta, like, if you're using a sponge or something to make a faux wall, you want to make sure you're rotating it. So it turns out that same rule applies to aging the armor and dabbing out, trying to dab out a hectic surface. So what I'm doing now is I'm just cleaning the outer part. Yeah, I like how this one came out. It's very more dramatic than the other one. I'm using a clean, dry rag to really clean off just the part that is raised. And that's going to suggest that it's more, it's like the filth is getting polished off of it. And hopefully, I don't know, that's my intention here. So we'll just have to see how it comes out. And you can let me know. Yeah, and this one is like really dramatic, how much contrast is there now on this. Right? That's like almost too dramatic, but it's kind of cool. It shows really high contrast, really pops out that feature. I actually kind of like this. Now, the more subtle one is here, which is starting to dry up a little and has a nice look to it, nice kind of graphite look. You know, just seeing the contrast on this other one, I'm going to try to clean off a little bit of this one. And of course, the great thing with using the water-based paint is that for a good long time, you can re-wet it and clean it off, change your idea. It's a lot more mutable, workable. And honestly, in this case, when you're weathering, you're putting on like this micro thin layer, and you're just gonna like clear coat it, you know, later. So. Okay. All right. So I think what I'm gonna do too is just to reduce this contrast a little bit, I'm gonna tap out some of this really dark paint down here. Again, just rotating constantly. I'm not minding if I re-dirty that edge because I am going to go back over. But I really want to make sure I don't get a stamping effect at this point, because this will be my last pass for sure. Yeah, that does look better. More like graphite-ish, like a drawing. All right, I'm getting some really nice kind of spotting that looks cool. I'm going to definitely go with that. Okay. And then while the paint's still wet, just use the clean part of the brush to get this part cleaned up again, the surface here. A little tiny bit of water there so I can really clean it up. There we go. Oh, royalty. All right, so that's looking pretty rugged. So now when we see this body part, this bit of armor from further away, you can really see that design feature now, and you can really see that depth difference. See that? That side's a little more dramatic. I guess this one overall has more contrasty. It's more dramatic. This one is, but I just love with any of the Star Wars armor pieces when they're just totally white. It really does look cool, and it really is heartbreaking, honestly, to patina these, but it's just such an aspect. It really brings out some of those relief design features, those surface elevation changes that are just so gorgeous on these parts. And it looks kind of, in my opinion, it would look kind of cheesy to like paint them out different colors. So the best way to sort of pull that design feature out is to do a patina finish and try to get it right to where the weathering also pops the design features, because they're so good. They're so good. So yeah, I think that my Dirty Scout is gonna look great. So now I've got my biceps, I've got my forearms. Those are looking good. But there's a couple other things that Biker Scouts have. Quite a couple of things. And of course, we're not going to get to all of those today. Here we go. Strap out of the knee pad. Here we go. Okay. So Scout knees are really cool. I'm a huge fan of this component. It's very prominent on screen. You get a lot of these low shots from the Biker Scout on the bike where the knee is like a very prominent piece of armor. And I think they knew this. Like all the armor pieces are really cool, but the knee is definitely the Scout knee armor is just definitely cool. And I'm not holding it upside down. This is the original orientation from Return of the Jedi. In The Mandalorian, they've rotated it. And I don't know if this is like a Forlom Zuckuss thing. I don't know if I could see where a person would put it on like this thinking it's more comfortable. And it is strange when you put them on like this, it kind of wants to lean out. But there's things you can do. And there's actually like a way you can use elastic in the inside. Anyway, they go like this for sure. So I think they did it on purpose in The Mandalorian. And I'm 100% sure. Just watch the Scout scene from The Mandalorian, and you will see the Scouts have the knee upside down. This is why I think they did it on purpose. They're going to make toys. They've already made Scout toys. I own a couple because they're cool. I have a lot of vintage Biker Scouts and vintage speeder bikes. So I couldn't resist buying the newly issued Biker Scout with speeder bike, but as seen in The Mandalorian as part of that series of toys. I have a Black Series Scout Trooper as well that is really cool that I really like. And on that one, the knee is correct because it's more based on the Return of the Jedi image of the Scout. But the Mandalorian toy of the Scout has the knee upside down too. So if you're going to be making toys of a character that's on screen and you want the toy to be different than the previous toys, you have to do that with the character on screen. So because they wanted the toys of the Biker Scout to have the knee upside down, they had to do it on screen. Okay, that's the only explanation for it that I can possibly come up with that is them doing it on purpose. If it's Disney just not handling the props correctly and not referencing, this is why I think they must have done it on purpose. Now, why would they do this so the toys are different? Well, because then the 4-inch figure of the Scout, of the new one, is easily to differentiate from a vintage Scout because the knee is reversed. So there's a telltale sign. It's like a counterfeit proof thing that Star Wars does when they do a reissue of a toy and they use an old mold or an old concept. they'll make a new mold, or you can see where they change the molds, like back from the 70s into the 80s, into the 90s, when they'd like reissue Star Wars ships like the X-wing and stuff. They're using different colors of plastic and slightly different molds even. But it's hard to say. Like, to me, I think that's pretty sure that they just want it to not interfere with the vintage reselling. I don't know. You guys have to let me know in the comments if you think that's what's going on there. So, long story short, in the Mandalorian, because I am one lost scout, so of course everything I'm going to be totally nerding out about is scout troopers, right? So in the Mandalorian, they are wearing the kneecap upside down. You're supposed to wear it like this. This one I have obviously aged some, but I think I kind of want to take it a little further with the black paint. And I could really, I could never recommend just like doing one pass on any of the armor pieces ever. Like for sanding and priming, I would always say like 2 or 3 passes. You're not going to get everywhere exactly right the first, just in one pass. And it's the same way with weathering and patinaing stuff. It's like, plan on doing a couple passes, like let it dry, do some more, let it dry. So this piece is getting another layer, and I just want to get some black down in these design features again, so it pops a little more. And I printed these a long time ago, so these might actually start looking pretty bad once I do the weathering. So we'll just see. It's good to kind of darken up the edges, where the print starts to look kind of raw sometimes, or you start to get that transition and sanding quality from interior to exterior, and just in general to try to get darker paint on the underside of the armor pieces so that they don't become well, one of the reasons for that is the filming lights are extremely hot and bright, and you don't want to light up the armor slabs from the back because they'll become translucent on camera. So even the helmets, that's the black paint on the inside is to stop the light from just broadcasting through the whole thing. Okay. All right, so we'll do a comparison from this to, well, that got like way darker. All right. It's definitely getting more soulful, that's for sure. So for my personal scout kit, I'm going for a scout trooper who survived the Battle of Endor and who has a lot of filth on his armor. It could even just be like maybe a dead scout trooper who's just laying there, but decaying in the jungle, right? In the forest. That could be an explanation for it, even. But either way, as a survivor or a corpse of the Empire, I'm interested in this idea of like a advanced aged scout trooper. And this has been the lore. I love all the lore of Star Wars because it's already explored this, and so all I want to do is just make the armor kit that would match the lore of a surviving platoon of scout troopers that has somehow found a cave or somewhere on Endor to kind of wait out the chaos of losing that battle. Yeah, there's really a missed opportunity in a way when they go find the wreckage of the Death Star and it's like out in the ocean. Like that's not a bad idea. That's kind of cool. But they kind of missed out on this opportunity to have like some really old, surviving stormtroopers kind of also making use of that facility, And there could have been a neat little battle there with some really filthy stormtroopers that were like, eating seafood and stuff because they were living out there. You can have really salty stormtroopers that were like badass. You can have like a real hot Cockney accent, like super duper British accent. Oi! That'd be cool. But no, It's all missed opportunities the whole way through, right? With all the new Star Wars stuff. Things they could have done but didn't. All right. Well, I just think it's interesting how, at least as in the Mandalorian TV show, what they're trying to do is one of the things they had on their short list, I guess, at Disney was dinosaurs. So there are dinosaurs in the Mandalorian. There's several different kinds of dinosaurs. Again, what is putting stuff on screen mean they can do now? Make a toy of it. So, it's a classic Star Wars. They're putting stuff on camera just so they can make toys of it. We all know dinosaur toys are cheap to make. This is the whole Jurassic Park thing. There was already tons of unlicensed dinosaur toys. Jurassic Park came along, and it's not just a movie, it's a toy concept. So all of these big boys. And so Jurassic Park is genius. It's almost like Transformers in a way, because there had already been decades of dinosaur toys, nice, big, articulated plastic dinosaur toys. There was a range of dinosaur toys you could get. And these are all basically unlicensed because they're all just representing the T-Rex, but they're all by like lots of little no-name toy companies, all the way down to like the little plastic dinosaur toys, right? So the toy companies exist, the molds even exist, and all, just like the Transformers, all that Jurassic Park had to do was come along and say, we're going to buy this whole family of toy companies, and therefore we instantly own molds to produce Triceratops, T-Rex, yada, yada, yada. And you essentially take over the dinosaur toy market. It's like if someone just starts calling sneakers Nikes or copies a Xerox, right? And it's like what happened with Transformers. All those G1 Transformers were all from their own little toy lines getting made by their own little toy companies. And they all had their own names, and in some cases their own cartoons. And I, of course, all the Japanese stuff, the Japanese history is really amazing with all of this. So I want to go to Japan and bring some of the Star Wars armor there, because I think they would really, I know that Japanese people really love Star Wars, and I don't think we really understand that unless we go there to like really see, like, okay, because it's a lot. Like, Japanese people love Spider-Man like nearly as much as Americans. So a lot of the Marvel stuff, the Japanese version of it, is also cooler too. Like the Japanese Spider-Man, it's so much cooler than the. It's like, if you have not watched Supaidaman, which is the Japanese Spider-Man from the 70s, you have to watch some of it. It is so amazing. It's got every boss battle you could possibly want. It's got everything thrown in there. Like, it's a 25-minute show, and you don't know what you're watching anymore. There's like cool vehicles, cool robots, like some really Japanese, like super Japanese stuff, but then Spider-Man, but like praying at temples and doing kung fu and stuff. Like, it's by far the best Spider-Man. He has a motorcycle. He has a Spider-Man motorcycle. But his car in the show, and the Japanese Spider-Man show, his car, you'll see miniatures of it, and you're like, damn, that's cool. And then they'll like roll up. There's a full-size version that they're like driving around Tokyo and stuff. You're just like, not only is it a very cool toy, so Japanese kids were just going crazy back in the 70s for Spider-Man in like the worst way, like probably way worse than my generation was, because Spider-Man was okay, but by the time I was getting into comic books, there was already manga, and that's just so much better than. Okay, so here's where they were, and then here's where I just kind of went with it. So the cracks got darker, the whole piece got darker. And this is the before and the after. And yeah, I like the after. I'm going to go with that. I'm okay with that. It's almost less contrasty. Sometimes when you add this black, it makes it like really more contrasty. And other times it kind of just grays the whole thing out quite a bit. In this case, it was already really a dark piece. So let's just add more. Let's add more to it. I was getting a little bit too much kind of gradient vibes from this front plate here. I don't like to see where there's like a gradient line where it's like one value of gray just kind of right over to another value. I want to, anywhere there's like a boundary between grays, I want to blur that boundary out as much as I can. And that's essentially what's going to make a good weathering finish. Okay, so thank you guys for sticking with me on this live stream. Wow, it's an hour and 20 minutes. That's so cool. You know, honestly, what I'm doing today is really silly. All I'm doing is just aging these armor pieces with some water-based black. And I've got some other just fun colors here, like yellow ochre and chocolate brown. And I've got the sand yellow that I really like, and yellow ochre, which is just great colors. And I'm trying to get into using some of the yellows and the colors, but I'm just enjoying the, well, let's go ahead and try some of the yellow ochre, see what happens. Can we get too far away with ourselves? Just a little bit right here. And let's see what happens. I'm gonna use a wet rag. I mean, ultimately, you can really dry brush. It's wet brushing, but it's, you know, you're kind of doing that light drag where you really don't have a lot of pigment on. You're mostly removing, you're mostly cleaning the corners and maybe depositing a little bit of new pigment in the cracks. Here we go. Polish out for some areas that are going to still be white. Yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit of force to get it just the way you like it, but a lot of times that repetitive, you know, hard rubbing with a cotton rag is great, because if you were doing that with a paper towel, it would just be leaving like shreds of paper fibers everywhere. So part of the beauty of a cotton rag is that you can really work stuff in and put a lot of pressure on it, and it doesn't leave fibers, you know, behind. And it really doesn't wick away much of the paint. It just kind of rubs it in and gets a little off. But as you can see, the rags don't really get that dirty. You know, there's some paint on it there, but not a ton. You know, it's definitely kind of looks like you're wiping off a lot of the paint, but a lot of it's staying on there. Honestly, it just kind of, when it thins out, it's just, okay, so there's that one, there's this one. I'm going to come back. Just go all the way over this one with a wet rag. Again, this is why it's good to have a bucket of water nearby if you feel like you've gone too far and you've got too much pigment on there. You can just kind of come back with a really wet rag and just really back out of a lot of what you put on there. And this actually can make it look, this can be the look you're going for too, ultimately. So let's see if that's what needs to happen here. Because this armor piece just got a little too dark. It almost looks like it didn't start out white. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay. All right. All right, that's not the worst. You would expect a knee pad to be pretty dirty after you've been in the forest for a long time. So I'm gonna go with that. I've got this little tiny brush here, and I'm just gonna cheat in because I really like to finish pretty much everywhere, but I'm just gonna cheat in some black paint down in these cracks here, just because I really do want this design to pop. And I just want to do it from the weathering. So I know that my weathering is going to have to be a little on the dramatic side to get the effect that I want. So now I'm just going to kind of come back, and I'm not going to push down into the crack because I don't want to take that paint out, but I just want to clean the edge of that valley where the paint is in. Okay. Yes. All right, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. So here's where this is like the before, which isn't that bad, but it's just kind of not there yet. Got kind of this nice rust patching kind of vibes. But this just kind of looks not quite there yet, but I like how the raised areas are really clean and burnished. I'm definitely going for that. And then this is one that I've just added some black to. So there's more black down on the cracks. That'll look better once it dries. When it's shiny, it's not looking very good. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the aged one for sure. So once again, we use the rag and the water to get the whole thing nice and wet. This is just going to help that paint really spread out on the surface and not get gummy, you know, and want to ball up and stuff like that. And, you know, this also kind of helps it soak in, you know, in places too. Just, it's always good to use a little water on your brush, get your brush a little wet at least. But I found that when doing these large slabs of armor, to just get the entire slab a little moist, like I don't ever dunk in water because I don't want water to get inside the print. But even just water on a brush, you can spread water around on the piece, just moisten it. And it really helps the paint even out like a ton. Okay. All right, here we go. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4. Whew, this is the 6th piece that we have weathered. I guess that's not a lot, but at least these are all the simple external pieces I need to deal with. The body needs to be done. The helmet is already done. So I think the next big step for this weathering process is going to be doing the body, the scout body. That's going to be cool. All right, making it all covered with black paint. It's a little scary sometimes. You just want to leave your print really nice and clean. I get it. Once you've sanded it and painted it and it looks really nice and clean, like when the Emperor is visiting, you know, you're up on the Death Star and feeling good, and you just got your new scout armor and you're ready to deploy down to the surface of Endor, right? All right, here we go. Well, yeah, sure. Then you have a very clean scout armor kit at that point. That is for sure. Those are some clean scout troopers up there in the Death Star. Clean like a jelly bean. Then you see the scout troopers that are down on Endor, and they're a little more dirty. And it kind of makes you wonder, what did these guys do to get deployed down here? You know, are these the scout troopers that were in trouble for some reason? They got caught with some kind of booze, that they were caught stealing rations or something, you know, like why? Because the scout troopers up on the Death Star are all nice and clean and stuff, right? So those must be the officers, I guess. All right, I think this one's going to go just a lot easier and a lot faster. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to use the small brush to cheat some black paint just down in these cracks that crisscross the knee pad. And I think they just are a sort of a signature aspect of the knee pad design on the Scout are these crisscrossing shapes. They allude to, you know, some of that really cool Star Wars technology, you know, that kind of alludes to the fact that maybe this is flexible, you know, are these like flex lines? Is the Scout Trooper knee like the latest and greatest version of Duraplast that has like flexible capabilities, like that's cool. All right. All right, I'm gonna go with the chaos. I like this chaos happening. Okay. So again, just putting a little pressure on there and bringing that contrast out from those cracks. Yeah, I think this is just right, just right. Okay, great. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining me today on this little journey that we're having. I didn't think it would take so long. Gosh, it took like an hour and a half to do the 6 pieces. But you can expect, like, if you come into your studio and you're going to start weathering a bunch of things, you can expect to spend about 8 hours. I mean, everything with props just takes time. And I know some of it is maybe intimidating and you don't know where to get started, but just remember, it's like making mistakes is just part of the learning process. And just make those mistakes, learn as much as you can from channels that are out there that are really good. And all I can possibly do is try to answer your questions to my best ability. I'm not sponsored by a company or anything like that. So I'm just going to share my own honest experiences and advice. And any questions you have about doing anything you see me doing, just ask me and I will gladly tell you all the little tiny details of how I did these things. Because I don't really, to me, this is just admiring the great stuff. And I think if you're here and you're watching this, it's because you also admire these great designs from the 70s and the 80s. And it's fascinating to produce them in full scale. Absolutely. So I'm a total Star Wars fan, from childhood. One of my, well, we all have traumatizing memories from childhood that are probably worse. I know I do, but um, we got to be grateful for our health, for our mental and physical health, right? But one of my, kind of funny traumatizing experiences as a kid was well, it wasn't even really funny, honestly. But I got my X-Wing fighter stolen, way back in 79. I got that X-Wing fighter toy. And I remember flying that thing around the neighborhood, and there was a trailer park across the street. And I was just playing with that X-Wing fighter up and down the block. And this bully came out of the trailer park with some of his friends and proceeded to steal my X-Wing fighter from me. They ran over with it back into the trailer park with the figure inside and everything. Oh, dude, I was so devastated. So devastated. So that was back in the day, dude. That was late 70s, back when kids would steal other kids' toys and stuff. Just crazy. And then when I was in high school, that's when the Jordans were coming out. And there were certain times where kids would get beaten up or they'd at least get intimidated and um, had their Jordans stolen. My high school had a rule that you could not wear Jordans to school because it had occurred too many times where bullies and gangsters at my school were stealing kids' Air Jordans, with intimidation or physically, pushing them down and pulling their shoes off, so some kids were getting beaten up. And I think it's, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some people did lose their life in an altercation where their Jordans were being stolen. But I also realized this is a bit of an urban legend as well. The idea of being killed for your Jordans. So I'm trying to think back to when I was a kid, if there was ever actually the news on TV of someone getting killed for their Jordans, but there really might have been. There really might have been. But as a little kid, gosh, how old was I when I had my X-Wing fighter get stolen? 79. So I was 5. Little 5-year-old kid just getting his X-Wing fighter just stolen right out of his hands. After that, I had a lot of bikes get stolen over the years. I mean, growing up in LA in the 80s, in West LA and Venice and stuff, and there was a lot of gangsters and just thievery. And a lot of my bikes got stolen as a kid, either the lock getting cut or straight out of my hands. At a skateboard, a couple skateboards got stolen just right off me. Um, where somebody just comes up and is like, hey kid, let me borrow your skateboard for a minute, or hey kid. There was one time where this guy just he was like a surfer dude, and this is like back in like maybe 1982 or 83 in Santa Monica, and the surfer dude just rolled up and jumped out of his little Toyota truck, and he had like board shorts on and no shirt, and he had like big old beard, and he blonde curly hair and stuff. Total surfer dude, surfboard in the back. Just pulls up in the Toyota truck. We're just out in the street skateboarding. Jumps out of his Toyota, like runs up on me, is like, give me, basically give me your skateboard. Pulls my skateboard right out from under me. Throws it in the back of his truck as he's like going back to his truck. Drove right off. So, I mean, it could have been worse, right? I could have been punched in the face or something. But that happened at least 2 times. I got a skateboard stolen from me at an arcade too, where I had skateboarded to the arcade, got some quarters, and I'm in there playing games, and I'm leaning my skateboard up against the game, and this like kid that I'd never seen before, bigger kid, comes up and just picked it up and just left the arcade really fast. And I was too scared to, I went over to the arcade person, my friends were there, and they saw it, and there was like definitely a commotion, but there was no stopping this guy. Like, he just went out the door and was gone. So that was a really cool skateboard too. That was like a Rob Roscop. That's the problem with traumatizing stuff. It was a Rob Roscop with Thunder Trucks and Slime Ball wheels, OJ Slime Ball, or what was it, Santa Cruz Slime Ball wheels. I loved Rob Roscop when I was a kid, and I would skate his boards, and it was a Rob Roscop large street deck. It was really cool. So anyway, it's out there somewhere maybe, but thanks for joining me on this little journey into my Sunday activities, weathering my Star Wars helmets and armor. I hope it was fun, interesting, and at the very least that you got to know me a little better. And let me know in the comments if any of this seemed useful, or if you'd like to add anything. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye.